Okay, give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes this time, not 10, not 12. 5 minutes, and I'm going to send you into the weekend with just a little bit of a lesson we've been talking about all week that's going to make you a better writer. If you want to be a better writer, you need to be reading. It's part of the process. Every great artist draws inspiration from other great artists. So you have to read. You have to study your craft. I had a conversation about this where I was speaking to another writer who he was convinced that reading like predisposed him to plagiarism. But if you follow along and you read a great conversation thread that we had earlier this week, plagiarism is a choice, right? Real creatives, the people that like take pride in their creativity and take pride in the work that they come up with, they're not gonna plagiarize. It's something you decide to do, to steal an idea. Reading makes you better at what you do. And you have to understand how other writers get their point across, how they frame their stories, the way that they construct and build their narratives. And you can't do that unless you expose yourself to the work of other writers. It doesn't matter what you read, just read something. Maybe you want to read like philosophy, right? Read some philosophy. This is a good way to build out philosophies in your own world. If you're doing world building, understand how to put together a cohesive philosophy. Maybe you want to read something that's really old, like an ancient text, and understand, how is it that they put together these original epics? This is something that was passed down through song. Even if you're not stealing, which by the way, it's really difficult to not steal from Beowulf because it's the original good versus evil. Well, it's not the original good versus evil story, but it's one of the oldest recorded stories. And it started off as a song. So read it and take in the poetry of it and understand how it works as a piece of poetry. Maybe you want to read something a little bit more contemporary. Still pretty old though, right? These were written back in the 1920s. And there's a lot of good things in here on what not to do as a writer. I'm a big fan of Robert E. Howard. I'm not ripping on him or anything like that. But you can go back and understand what made some of his work really, really interesting, but also what made it kind of formulaic and why it got old and tired after a while. There's really only so much Conan I can read. And I do enjoy, like I said, what Robert E. Howard created. It just gets a little tired after a while. And I only have so much space in my brain for this one formula. It's a great formula, but learn from that. Learn how to build that formula and then also make it more interesting for your own writing. Maybe you want to read something truly contemporary. That's a shameless plug. Sorry about that, but it's all right. This book could have used some lessons. I should have been reading more when I wrote this book. Look, the point is, in order to improve at your art, and your writing is your art, you must study it. You have to learn from other writers because there's no really other way to learn how to write than by reading. Another great quote that came out of the conversation we had earlier this week was that writing is deep thinking. It's the art of deep thinking. So when you read, you're studying the deep thoughts of someone else. I can't take credit for that. I think the gentleman's name was Kian, who put that in the Twitter thread, and I love that. I think it's a brilliant point. You need to study the deep thoughts of other writers to understand how to improve on yours. You're not necessarily going in looking for content that you're going to cherry pick and say, oh, I'm going to take this, I'm going to take this, I'm going to take this. No. You want to understand how they built what they built. How did they get to their narrative? How do they hold tension in the text and in the dialogue? How do they move from one part to another? I never really understood the purpose and the strength of not plotting, creating a 3-act plot until I read a book that fundamentally redefined how that functions for me. And I understood it so much better and realized why it moves a plot along so nicely. Read. If you're not reading something right now and you consider yourself a writer, take this weekend to find something new and read it. It doesn't have to be a novel. It doesn't have to be a great epic. Read somebody's short story. Reach out to one of the other writers out here and ask them, hey, can I read some of your work? But read something. and see how it changes your thinking about your own writing. And remember, at the end of the day, don't try and write, just write. Just write.